So Donald Trump is on his way to securing 312 electoral college votes and the popular vote by almost 5 million people. Let's talk about why on Azimuth Podcast. I'm Barrett McNabb, and with me is Kimberly McNabb. So, Kimberly, we obviously have a historic mandate from the American people on what needs to happen to move our country forward. What are some of the reasons why you think Donald Trump won the 47th presidency of the United States?
Well, there are a multitude of reasons. Of course, there's the obvious question that everybody who runs for president needs to ask and answer. Are you better off now than you were 4 years ago? Well, we can say we've experienced Biden-Harris, we've experienced Trump. Which one were you better at the end of the 4 years?
Trump.
Yeah, I think most people would agree Donald Trump. But also, we can compare his campaign from 2020, very angry, even the Al Smith dinner, his speech was a little nasty, got very personal. This time, way more funny.
Right.
Didn't go personal, no personal attacks. And the whole campaign has been mostly, especially compared to his previous two campaigns, way less about him, more about the American people, far more unifying, because he brought in people who could attract big crowds like RFK, Vivek Ramaswamy, Tulsi Gabbard. I mean, just huge people from different sets of ideas. Elon Musk. I mean, this wide range of ideas, and hammer them out into what most people can agree on. Right.
No, I agree. I mean, his messaging resonated so well with across racial and class lines inside the United States that he was able to build that coalition that you were talking about. And obviously, the campaign mudslinging occurs, but when it's over, it's over. And Trump grabbed up people that were primarying against him and brought them back into the fold, and that messaging was on point. Now, I really think one of the biggest drivers, and the American public could see this, was the excessive use of lawfare in trying to prosecute Donald Trump. They had 4 years to do it in, to bring up all these cases and things like that.
They do it in the last year.
But when he announces that he's running for re-election, is then when they bring it all out.
Well, some of them even longer, like the Eugene Carroll stuff. I mean, that was decades old, and I've never understood someone being criminally innocent, but the civilly. Well, everybody's going to deny that, of course I didn't rape so-and-so, blah, blah. And just to say that you didn't is slander. That doesn't make any sense to me.
Well, I mean, that law was specifically targeted for Trump because
the statute of limitations was flipped just for that case. How is that fair?
It was a one-time, for the next year, you can go back 40 years and bring forth, suits and everything against an individual. And then after that, it goes back to the normal statute of limitations. So, I mean, literally, they created that law specifically.
Lady Justice has a blindfold on for a reason, so they can't see if it's Donald Trump or Kamala Harris or anybody.
But even the federal cases, they had years to bring those forward, and they just let sleeping dogs lie until Donald Trump
the valuation of Mar-a-Lago. I mean, come on, that was old too.
Yeah, and so, but they brought it as soon as he said, "I'm running for re-election." The Biden administration and the DOJ specifically were trying to convict Donald Trump, for these supposed offenses. You're innocent until proven guilty, but it was only when he said, "I'm running for re-election," and they really started to hammer him to just make it so that he couldn't run. He was trying to run for president, having to run back to a courtroom in Georgia, having to run to a courtroom in New York, and there was truly election interference, and the American people saw it for what it was. If he did it in 2021, arrest him in 2021, charge him, prosecute him in 2021. Don't wait all the way until the election.
You just made it so obvious.
So obvious.
And then I would like to see the prosecutors, Letitia James, Fannie Willis, like have. I'm not saying anybody should be fired. Maybe they should, but at least have their bar licenses looked into, because as a CPA. Every 2 years, I have to do an ethics class. It's just part of the requirement to be a CPA.
Right.
And so to be a lawyer, now it can vary state by state, but overall, it's a violation of code of ethics to say, I'm running just so I can persecute someone.
Right.
You're not supposed to find the man first and then find the crime. You're supposed to find the crime and then find the man.
Right. No, I agree.
And so that was just so obvious to so many people. But, other reasons why he won, I mean, like you just mentioned, showing up to things. He showed up to some things that she just didn't bother showing up to. Well, guess what? You left room for him to run the narrative, to steal the spotlight. You don't show up to Helene until like 2 weeks or however long after it happened. Well, guess what? People don't care. They don't care. Like Donald Trump was here for like a whole day, and people in his camp came for days on end and helped out, and you came for a photo op. Big whoop. He showed up to the Al Smith dinner. She didn't. I mean, you want to campaign against him, you got to be there.
Yeah, and Donald Trump, he actually interacted with real people in real scenarios and situations. He'd go into a McDonald's and talk to people, whereas Kamala Harris would go into a diner and have all the customers kicked out, and then bring in busfuls of actors to go in so that she could interact with them. I mean, Trump saw the real people. Hey, let me go ahead and buy everybody here, a quarter pounder with cheese. Let me go ahead and work the line at McDonald's and serve real people as they're coming through the drive-thru.
Yeah, he interacted with and did things for people that couldn't really offer him anything other than a vote, whereas she's rubbing elbows with celebrities that can, spend a lot of money on her campaign and give free in-kind contributions.
Right. Well, I mean, another thing I think that the reason why Trump was able to win is his campaign staff was Johnny on the spot, no matter what the situation. And for example, President Biden calling the Trump supporters garbage, and then the very next day to have a painted garbage truck with Trump Vance on it and have Trump walking around in a garbage man's vest, gold, absolute gold, and then doing the presser from the garbage truck.
Talk about doing the work. They were Johnny on the spot. They didn't miss a beat, and they were paying attention.
And just paid dividends, especially since, again, his message was truly resonating with working class Americans who felt that the Biden and Harris administration was prioritizing illegal immigrants over Black and Hispanic Americans that are in the working class.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, he did the work. He just went anywhere and everywhere. I mean, had so many campaigns, talked to so many people, went on so many podcasts, many of which she would not go on.
Right, or put very burdensome demands on.
It's like, you're talking to Joe Rogan. You want him to come to you and only do an hour, which I'm sure you're going to show up late to.
Which would make it his shortest podcast ever if it was an hour. I think his shortest one's about 3 hours is what he normally does. But let's talk about the big one. The 2 assassination attempts on his life. The man is a stud. The man projects strength. The man projects the spirit, esprit de corps, and the spirit of fight. I mean, to have those powerful images of him with a bloodied face and his fist up in the air with Secret Service agents all around him. I mean, in that clear blue sky with the flag. I mean, you can't make this stuff up that somebody is going to attempt to assassinate a former president, but also the front runner in the for the Republican Party.
What that moment said to me, and I don't know if this said this to anybody else, but he was the 45th president of the United States. He's supposed to have secret security detail that can protect him under just unimaginable circumstances.
Right.
And if he's not safe, then I don't consider myself safe. And it sends a message to foreign adversaries like, come get me.
Right.
And that's not what we're supposed to have like as representation for the United States of America. We're supposed to be able to keep our most important people safe. We're supposed to keep all our people safe.
Right.
But if we can't keep that person safe, then what are we doing?
Yeah, that's a great point. I mean, honestly, this is in jest, but I think when President Biden leaves office, Trump's current Secret Service detail needs to be assigned to Biden and say, "Here you go.
How you like it?"
Hopefully, you have better luck with them than I did, and have those guys go.
Hey, if it's good enough for me, it's good enough for you,
good
right?
Or swap out with Barack Obama's security detail and say, "Okay, you now get Trump's." Security detail, and good luck with that. So anyway, I think that those images and the negative rhetoric that the Democrats used to try and define Trump and his supporters, directly led to those assassination attempts, and so obviously, you have President Biden and Kamala Harris coming out after these attempts. Political violence is it's never okay. Well, you're calling for the political violence. They're
right back at it within 48 hours.
Yeah,
too.
Exactly. I mean, even the last week before the election. Kamala Harris is outside the Naval Observatory, which is the vice president's home while she's in office, or while the VP is in office, and calling Trump a fascist and continuing to use horrible language to describe him and his supporters, and it just didn't help. Now, on top of that, I mean, I said it was the big giant elephant in the room. I mean, just having those huge, powerful images won over a lot of people, but still. He had clear policies. When you went to his website, he had clear policies. And don't get me started on Project 2025. He had nothing to do with that. So don't say, well, yeah, he had these Project 2025 policies. He distanced himself. He said, I'm not part of that. I haven't read that. I have my own stuff that's on my website. And that was
because he has his own ideas. How original.
Well,
but the media will keep.
Kamala had to copy a lot of his.
The media will just keep harping on it, and of course they'll never be self-reflective and go, actually, why did she lose? Oh, it's like they'll say a part truth, like, well, he just thinks like they do. He can relate to them more because he's a misogynist, because he's a sexist,
right.
And add that part in. I'm like, oh my God, stop with the victim mentality. You will never improve. People see your BS, and that's why you're losing credibility.
Right.
Because you're proven to be more and more false, and you'll never take personal responsibility. This is the bad thing about Marxism and socialism is blame the other person for my faults. It's never my fault. And guess what? You're always going to get a failing grade then if you don't change.
Yeah, absolutely. And the issues that going back to policy, the issues that were on the minds of Americans by an enormous majority was the economy and immigration. And
fix your policies, maybe you have a chance.
Yeah, exactly. If she had articulated out, she said, I'm going to bring back that border bill. And the thing is that was a horrible border bill. It was
an amnesty bill.
Yeah, I mean,
it was legalizing.
You start off.
Crossings.
Every time she was asked the question, she'd start off with the good stuff, right? It was going to put 1,500 more border agents. It was going to give them more money. It was going to give them more security.
And they even said they don't need more resources. They need to be allowed to do their jobs.
To actually follow the law. But the bottom part of the bill is it allowed 5,000 people a day, 1.7 million a year.
Which the president could override once the so-called limit could be hit. So it's just this... But don't believe your lying eyes.
Yeah. But Trump said, look, I'm going to close the border. I'm not going to let 5,000 people in. I'm going to do mass deportations, starting with the people who have committed crimes here. Now,
the ones we can all agree with.
The argument could be made that crossing the border illegally is already a crime, so they've all committed a crime. But they've come into the country, they've been caught, they've been released, and now they're committing crimes in the country separate from crossing the border illegally. So it resonated. It resonated again, like I've said earlier, with black men and Hispanic men saying, it seems that the Democrats are prioritizing illegal immigrants over us. And Donald Trump said, I've got your back. I've got your back. I want to help you get jobs. I want to help the economy. I'm going to put tariffs. The Democrat Party was always saying this is just a tax on Americans. Well, or you could buy American products that are made in the United States and you don't have to pay the tariff. So what are you talking about? It's only if you buy the products that are made in foreign countries that currently are adversaries of the United States. The vast majority of tariffs are on Chinese products. Oh, by the way, the Biden administration kept every single Trump tariff on Chinese products and didn't let them go. So
if it's such a bad tax on the working class, then why do you keep it?
Why do you keep it? Because it's the right thing to do.
No, they want the money.
Well,
that's why the left keeps it.
Well, I mean, but still, it's to help prevent the dumping of government subsidized products that are made in a foreign adversary, such as solar panels or steel and things like that. Just dumping it, and having the government create those products and then dump it for less than market value in the United States. You got to raise the tariffs in order to prevent that from happening. Yeah, so I really think his messaging was instrumental in making sure that the people knew what it was that he was talking about. Now, small criticism. Now, he did, talk about his legal woes and things like that, but it was not self-pity. He turned that messaging around into, if they could do it to me, they can do it to you.
Exactly. And that's what I was trying to get at with the assassination attempt. If they can go after him, then I'm a nobody.
Right. Well,
if I say something they don't like online, they can come after me as well.
And they do in the negative comments we get. And it seems like more liberals than conservatives watch our podcast.
Hey.
But it's like, keep watching.
Engagement is engagement.
Right.
But, this campaign was far more about the American people than his last two campaigns. And, that's what people want. People want safer streets. They don't want your resources to go after, killing your pet squirrels. They want the illegal immigrants to not be dumped on their streets.
Right. No, absolutely.
I mean, their priorities, not the government's.
Now, with Trump telling people what he's going to do, how he's going to fix the economy, what tariffs he's going to do, his negotiating prowess, and saying that he's going to help end these foreign conflicts that luckily the United States is not directly involved in. We're giving material, which is military equipment and money to Israel and to Ukraine, but Donald Trump is saying that he's going to get everybody to sit down at the negotiating table. So, I mean, here's something like, let's figure this out without having to send troops.
Right, which is a far more better argument than don't.
Right. Yeah.
Don't.
I mean,
okay.
It's just crazy. It's crazy that the way that the Democrats are trying to put a toe in every single pool. But not solve any one problem.
Because they don't want to offend the Palestinians. They don't want to offend the Israelites. It's like, just like the biblical saying, you can't please two masters. I mean, that's talking about God and money. But I think, that comes true here. It's like your two kids saying, well, who's your favorite? Like, if you go, then they go, ugh.
Right.
They're not happy. No one's happy.
You're both my favorite. But still, with this is a national mandate, and that's how we open this. Like I said, I'm predicting 312 electoral votes. Real Clear Politics is aligning with my vision as well.
I'm just hoping we keep the House.
Yeah. Yep. So we have the Senate. That's already locked up. And it really is looking, the last time I checked, as of 1:37 p.m. on Thursday, November 7th, the Republicans have 305. They need 318. No, 218 to have control. They have 205 right now, and so it's looking very, very good that they're going to grab those 13 extra seats and then have a majority, so that both chambers of the Congress are controlled by Republicans. Obviously the executive branch is going to be controlled by Republicans, and the Supreme Court is going to be controlled by Republicans. So hopefully Donald Trump will be able to enact his vision and the mandate of having this landslide of Electoral College and the popular vote. I cannot be so understated that how important that having the popular vote just increases his mandate.
Yep, and it's been 20-something years since the Republicans done that.
Yeah, it's been 2004, so it was George W. Bush in his reelection was the last time that a Republican won the popular vote, and this is the first time since Grover Cleveland. I think it's 138 years ago that a president ran for president, won, ran for re-election, lost, ran for a third time and won. It's only happened one other time, Grover Cleveland, 138 years ago. So Donald Trump is making history all over the place.
Yeah. Well, what's important to me is that creeper Tim Walz, who looks frighteningly like my stepfather, is not going to be a heartbeat away from the presidency. So I say, na, 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 hey, 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 goodbye.
And with that, thank you so much for tuning into Azimuth Podcast, and please stay tuned after these messages.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for listening. If you enjoy our show with all the stories we share, we would love your support.
And it's as easy as clicking that subscribe or follow button. This will ensure you never miss an episode and keeps us bringing you these important stories. Your support makes a huge difference. Thank you so much for being part of our podcast family.
Thanks, and keep tuning in.
So the liberal left is losing their mind after the historic loss of Kamala Harris in the 2024 presidential election. Let's talk about it on Azimuth Podcast.
I'm sorry. No. Why? Why? Do you really hate me that bad?
We have literally lost the plot. We have lost the plot.
I just woke back up. What the f*** is going on? America, y'all dead ass? Dead ass? Come on, bro. Damn. What are we about to do?
Votes at this time. That means he needs 23 more. Pennsylvania has 19 electoral votes. Michigan.
I've been crying in my room for the past hour. For the past fucking hour. And people saying, oh, but New York is blue, New York is blue. I don't give a f*** New York is blue. Like, the fact that this man is a president now.
Well, that was fun. I'm Barrett McNabb, and with me is Kimberly McNabb. So Kamala Harris is a flawed candidate, and this absolutely just showed why she was not the right pick for this presidential cycle for the Democrats. Kimberly, what are some of the reasons why you think Kamala Harris lost?
Well, Ben Shapiro put it very well. He said, whoever it turns out to be a referendum on is the one who's going to lose. If it's a referendum on Trump, he's going to lose. If it's a referendum on her, she's going to lose. I would say this showed that this election was a referendum not just on her,
right,
but the Democratic Party itself. I mean, for her, first of all, you have to ask the question, are you better off now than you were 4 years ago? Most people, unless you're making money off of this inflation stuff, no, you're not. I mean, I speak for us, we're not. Pretty much everybody I know says no, right?
Yeah, I mean, when you look at Kamala's policies, oh wait, there weren't any forever until like the last 3 weeks, 4 weeks before the election.
She copy-pasted from Biden.
And she copy and pasted from Biden. But the big thing was her saying, I have 32, 42, doesn't matter what it is, Nobel laureate economists that say my economic plan is going to be better.
I believe it was 16.
16? Okay. Yeah. So I exaggerated that, but still, what economic plan? What economic plan are you touting that these 16 Nobel laureate economists are touting?
And she could never articulate it. She just kept saying, opportunity economy. And many people asked her what that meant, and she could never do a good job of explaining what it was.
I mean, she was saying that she was going to jumpstart the economy by giving black men small business loans for them to set up weed businesses.
Forgivable loans.
Yeah, forgivable loans. And so, I mean, here we go. So that was going to be her economic plan is to introduce more marijuana into the economy and give away effectively free money for black men to set up businesses. Now, never mind the fact that goes right into her identity politics.
It's also illegal.
Yeah, I mean, at the federal level, absolutely. And so, one of the things I really had a heartburn with, and I think a lot of Democrats did too, there was no primary. There was no primary for her to, be picked by the American people, but specifically the Democrat Party, for her to be their candidate. One of the things I think I've seen back and forth in the news, universe is that, or the mainstream media universe is that there's some anger at Joe Biden for even, running in this election cycle, to even attempt to try and run in the 2024 election, and that he should have put, had an open primary. And my counter argument to that, with in a gape mouth, is that there was a primary. There was a Democrat primary, and there were multiple candidates who ran in that primary. Not one was Kamala Harris in that primary. No. She did not primary participate. But you had Dean Phillips that was trying and going through.
Yeah, they actively shut down anybody who tried and said, no, if you do manage to get any delegates, we're going to assign them a Biden, which I just don't.
It just intrinsically unfair, which is why RFK Jr., who was running as in the primary as a Democrat candidate, had to leave because he literally was being shut out from any type of participation in a primary. So for the liberal pundits to say, well, Biden should have had a primary, there was a primary. There was a primary, and Biden won it after the Democratic Party made it so that it was physically impossible for anybody else to run against Biden. But Kamala could have stood up and said, I'm running against Joe Biden at that time. But she didn't have the backbone to do that.
No, you got to toe the line if you're on the left. But that whole process was just, should have been glaringly obvious to the American people that this is no longer the JFK Democratic Party. When you shut out a Kennedy, like the brand name of what it used to mean to be a Democrat, you're talking about a different breed of animal entirely.
I couldn't agree more. And to go to kind of piggyback onto that about this not being the Democrat Party from 30 years ago, 40 years ago, 50 years ago, you have the Democrats that on their messaging have abandoned the core people that supposedly were, the bulk of their, constituency. And that is working class Americans and also middle class, but still specifically working class Americans, I think have been left behind by this party, and the messaging showed it. I mean, the Democrat Party is primarily catering to university, college indoctrinated students, indoctrinated graduates. So I don't like to call them college graduates. I like to call them college indoctrinates, and they have just hook, line, and sinker grabbed onto all of this he, him, she, sure, they, them, type of identification, calling Latina women Latinx. I mean, they don't know what planet you're from when you're a Democrat and you say, well, yeah, the Latinx population, the Latinos and Latinas, they think you're stupid when you're talking to them and that you're trying to be PC, but you're just insulting them and their heritage.
Well, that's because they have things other than just language. They have actual things to do.
Right. No, yeah, I agree. And so for the working class to just be kind of set aside, I think is just a huge mistake on the Democrat Party. Now, I've always said that, with the Republican coalition that they have, if they could ever get the union vote, and by the union vote, I mean the working class vote, they would be wildly successful. And that's exactly what happened. So I'm glad I called that one on the head.
Yeah, I mean, the Democratic Party just showed that it's a party about elitism, and it's been glaringly obvious throughout most of this administration, from saying, oh, well, we want no gas-powered cars by 2032 when the average American can't afford to spend yet another $10,000, $20,000, $30,000 on cars that have been jacked up so much in price the last 4 years. They can't afford it. We spent, $1 billion, billions of dollars for more power stations to be set up throughout the United States, and what they set up, like 8 or something.
Right.
I mean, people can't afford it. They don't want it. It's not effective for these semis. You can't do it. It makes cars weigh thousands of pounds more, so they're more likely to get destroyed in a car accident because you go the same rate of speed, put more force, more weight behind it. It's going to do more damage.
Absolutely.
And it's putting more weight on our infrastructure. But anyway, I could go on forever about that. So no gas stoves, but yet you're taking pictures of Kamala Harris and Doug Emhoff cooking in the kitchen with a gas-powered stove.
Yeah. And
how many people live in Texas? How many people live in Florida? How many people live in hurricane-prone areas? And if you're without power without a week and you have little kids, you don't want gas-powered water heaters. You don't want gas-powered stoves. So you're not supposed to take a shower for a week, or you're supposed to take a cold shower for a week.
You're not supposed to cook.
I think most Americans would be pretty PO'd if you had to tell them they had to go without hot showers.
Oh, I couldn't agree more. So you mentioned earlier that Josh Shapiro, and she failed to pick him as her VP. And, the general consensus is that he is such a dynamic character that he would have overshadowed her. And her vanity said, I can't have somebody that's going to look better than me.
Well, who does that leave? That leaves Tim Walz.
Tim Walz. So you pick Tim Walz. So you lose Pennsylvania because you didn't pick Josh Shapiro, who's the governor of Pennsylvania, out of vanity. And that potentially cost you the whole election.
Well, yeah, I think that was another big difference between the Democratic Party and the Republican Party this time, because despite his flaws, Obama, he's like, okay, I'm not going to pick someone smarter than me. Biden.
Right.
Well, who's worse than Biden? Harris.
Yeah.
And it's just this trickle down telephone effect where it's just you get the ultimate form of stupidity. I'm a knucklehead. But then on the other side of the aisle, you have Donald Trump. Now, he's known for not liking to get criticized, but he is known for picking smart people.
Right.
Now, last time, Pence, I mean, good guy, but not a J.D. Vance.
Right.
And Trump, he wasn't afraid to pick a very intelligent man and someone who could go and get the work done.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, he would go in the lion's den.
Yeah, J.D. Vance, he went home with a light coat of sweat every single day. Getting out there, being in interviews, answering the tough questions, whereas,
graciously,
even going into hostile environments and getting tough questions asked of him. Whereas Kamala Harris only went on one, quote unquote combative with Brett Baer on Fox News, and she didn't even answer.
Cut short.
Yeah, she cut short. She showed up late, and so she had canned answers. I mean, he asked specific questions, and she went into memorized campaign rhetoric that didn't answer the question, and people saw right through that. Now, one of the things that I'd heard about, getting back to Shapiro, was that Obama had influenced him not to take the job. If she did call him and choose him as the VP candidate, don't take the job, because Obama felt that Kamala Harris was a flawed candidate. And in fact, when Joe Biden pulled out of the race and he tapped Kamala Harris, Obama, he put out in a text message that he hopes that there would be a vigorous primary at the convention. But then Hillary Clinton endorsed Kamala Harris.
Everyone else quickly fell in line.
Jumped in. But if you notice, it took 3 days before Barack Obama endorsed Kamala Harris, and he was actually really mad that everybody jumped on her and telephonically, she was collecting up primary electors and completely circumvented the potential primary at the Democrat National Convention. So he was actually mad, and he really would have preferred Shapiro not to be the VP, because Obama saw Kamala as a flawed candidate and didn't want to tarnish his reputation.
Save him for later.
Save him for later. Yeah.
Well, let's go back to further examples of how the Democratic Party showed itself to be a party of elitism. I mean, come on, when Hawaii, Lanai,
right.
When the fires were happening in Hawaii,
yep.
I mean, come on, how long did it take Biden to show up? And then, of course, he had to break out, oh, my house was nearly destroyed in a kitchen fire. I mean, come on.
Not the same thing.
When you're suffering a loss, do you want to hear about someone else's loss, especially something that really wasn't a loss? Right. I mean, it's just out of touch, and it's not welcome in any conversation. So they got, $700? That covers nothing.
Right.
I mean, you could easily spend that on a hotel stay in Hawaii.
Consequently, it's the same amount of money that they gave in North Carolina.
Well, $750 if you could get it. Again, your home is destroyed. Some of your family members are missing or dead. $750 covers nothing.
No.
If you could get it. And then it took Kamala Harris a long time to... I think she did show up for a short bit, but it took a long time. Whereas Trump, he had already been there, and
right.
He spent a lot of time there. It's like, which one do you think is more genuine? Like, if you lose a family member and you have someone come before the funeral, help you out and stuff, versus a family member that shows up as the funeral is ending and they lay one flower on the casket and then they leave, which one's more genuine?
Right.
So it's just so out of touch. And, the left, they love to make all these policies that affect everyone else. We're going to let all these illegals in. We're going to dump them in the middle of Chicago in the poorest neighborhoods. We're going to dump them in Springfield, Ohio, where, it's a small amount of residents and they don't make that much money. Oh, but you got to deal with it. You got to pay the price. Have fun with that.
Yeah, I mean,
but not my $2 million home.
That's one of the things that just goes to show you how the Democrats are out of touch just by virtue of class. So, black men and Latino men felt as though the Democrat Party was prioritizing illegal immigrants over their needs. Mm-hmm. And that's one of the reasons why they, turned out for President Trump in droves. And, Kamala lost, a big chunk of that electorate. Another chunk of the electorate that Kamala lost were Catholics. Mm-hmm. And so in the 2020 election, Catholics went 49% for Trump, 50% for Biden. And in this election, Catholics did 10 points for Trump. And so Trump he gained 11 points out of the Catholic vote. And in interviewing a lot of Catholics, it was directly related to Kamala skipping the Alfred Smith dinner in New York City and snubbing the Catholics by doing so.
Well, that dinner was hardly the only thing that she snubbed. And, if you have a friend, you invite them to all these things, to birthday parties, New Year's Eve celebrations, barbecues, whatever. You invite them to a lot of stuff and they don't show up. Eventually, you're like, well, screw you.
Right.
I'm not going to invite you to anything. And guess what? You weren't invited to be the American president.
Yeah, I mean that's exactly true. I mean, there are certain things that you have to do. And
you mean put in the work, as she put in her concession speech?
Yeah, you do. You have to put in the work. And my mother always raised me, do the things you have to do before you do the things you want to do. And attending the Al Smith dinner is something that presidential candidates have to do. I mean, you have to do.
I mean, and come on, you don't want to believe in black cats and, bad luck and all that stuff. But do you really want to take the chance when it comes to the presidency?
Yeah. I mean, the last person that skipped the Al Smith dinner also lost.
Yes.
So I mean, go figure. But, having this wishy-washy policy and the star-studded rock star after pop star coming out for her, it didn't resonate as much as people think with the American people, or as much as the Democrat strategists thought that getting Taylor Swift and Beyonce and things like that would Cardi B to jump out for her. This is not high school. This is not a popularity contest anymore. This is for the real deal and economics and putting food on people's tables. And that's something that the Democrat strategists in the campaign, Harris campaign, failed to realize.
Yeah, it just showed, once again, Democratic Party is way out of touch. We don't care about Taylor Swift. All these people are just shiny but hollow husk of human beings. They sold their souls a long time ago. Many of them have been famous and rich for decades, if not their entire life. And human nature is to get very, very spoiled.
Right.
Very, very quickly. And so if you've been filthy rich, and I'm not going to, wish it away from anybody.
Right.
But you forget common things. You don't have to go to the grocery store. If you have a flat tire, you can afford to have another driver come pick you up, and the little peon that works for you, deal with it. You don't have real problems, and so many of these people don't even have kids, so that's definitely off their radar. It's like, I don't have Taylor Swift that's going to come talk to me. What the American people see is, okay, you endorse her, but when I can't afford groceries, when I can't afford rent, or when my apartment complex is being taken over by Venezuelan gangs, is Taylor Swift going to come help me? No. Is Oprah going to come help me? No. She's still going to be in her mansion in Hawaii or California or whichever one she wants to stay in that weekend.
Right. I mean, just think about it. When was the last time Taylor Swift got in a shopping cart and went up and down all the aisles of her local grocery store picking out items? When is the last time Oprah Winfrey went up and down the aisles picking out items? And you're going to say, well, they're famous and they have security issues. Yeah, everybody does. Everybody has security issues because there is rampant crime going on, and the FBI had lied about it, and the Democrats said, look, crime's going down.
That these elites wanted to, defund the police.
Right. And somehow they influenced the FBI to release a report that crime is down, and the FBI had to retract that, and they had to quietly say, look, crime's up 6%, and
that's what's reported.
And that's what's reported. I mean, so this is just a huge disconnect with the star power of trying to get people to vote for Kamala Harris in this quote unquote historic election where you have the potential of electing a female to president. You have a chance to elect a black Indian American for president, and that's what she ran on. And there are, as you saw in the montage and before, the people were sad that a woman wasn't elected president and that a black person / Indian American wasn't elected president. But the thing that they are saying is that the rest of America, the majority of America, were bigoted and sexist and racist and things like that, and don't take a look back that she was a flawed candidate. She lost not because she's a woman and America is sexist. She lost not because she's black and America is racist. She lost because she couldn't articulate and make the case, prosecute, if you will, the case that she should be the president of the United States. It doesn't matter if you're black, purple, green, polka dotted. I don't care. You need to make sure that you make the case to me, earn my vote, and tell me how you're going to make America better.
Well, that prosecutor thing is another way in which she flip-flopped. She said she wanted to fundraise for the bail for BLM rioters,
right.
But then when it's time to run for president, she's like, oh, I was a persecutor. First of all, you have to be able to make a closing case to be a prosecutor. And I have never seen any clips of her making a good opening statement or
right.
closing statement. And I'm willing to bet good money that if you go search through all the cases that her name's supposedly on, she's never the leading prosecutor. I'm willing to bet she always had peons do it.
Yeah, I mean, good on her. She had a staff that covered for her. But when she gets up and says, "I'm the only person that's ever prosecuted a international transatlantic and transnational international gangs," man, you didn't come up with that. It's kind of the same. I love me some General Petraeus, but General Petraeus is David Petraeus is portrayed as the father of counterinsurgency operations, or COIN. It's not like he went into a cave and slept on a bed of nails eating dried bay leaves as he was coming up with counterinsurgency doctrine. He had a staff of hundreds of people that wrote that. He just has his signatures on it. But honestly, this is just silly for her to claim all of this work. I mean, she didn't do the work and make the case to the American people, and I think it's because she's lazy.
Oh, yes. There are many clips of Judge Joe Brown calling her lazy, and he dealt with her a lot. So
right.
I'm kind of sad that President Trump didn't have him speaking at rallies, because he had a lot of stories about her, and he is quite entertaining about it. But I want to go back to the whole, you didn't elect a black woman for
right.
president. Again, another argument for the Democratic Party being out of touch with the American people, saying, we think you're so dumb, you're so shallow, that you'll just elect a door frame, put the label female on it, and it can win president. I'm sorry, we're smarter than that.
Right. Well, I mean, and again, this identity politics of putting people into buckets and putting people into silos. So, touting the white dudes for Kamala, touting the women for Kamala, touting the Hispanics. When you start siloing all of the races, you're not bringing the races together. You're not bringing them together. You are putting them into buckets, and you're keeping them separate, and that is a huge travesty, and I think it's a miss for the Democrat Party. People want to put food on the table. People want to live in freedom. People want to have freedom of speech. Notice I didn't say black people want to put food on their table. I didn't say white people want to put food on their table. I didn't say brown people want to put food on their table. I said people, Americans want to put food on their table. Americans want all of these things. And we need to stop identifying people by their race.
Well, the whole division thing is a whole Mao's cultural revolution, Marxism, like divide people, break up families. You know what? When people are divided, they're easier to conquer, right?
And that's something that I really kind of took offense to, is the last 3 weeks of the campaign, the Harris campaign was releasing videos and TV commercials about how to have wives sneak around past their husbands in order to cast votes for Kamala Harris. That women aren't strong enough to be able to tell their husband, I'm voting this way and here's why. But you can go ahead and vote for Kamala Harris and your husband will never know. Or men, you can vote for Kamala Harris and you don't have to tell your friends. If it's secretive, if we have to be secretive in order to vote for Kamala Harris, she might not be the right candidate.
Well, also, it's I would take it as a little insulting to the American people saying, we think your relationship is so dysfunctional. This is what you have to do. And, but it's just par for the course because I think Julia Roberts was the voice over it. And guess where dysfunctional marriages are quite popular? Hollywood.
Hollywood, yeah.
I'm sorry, not the rest of us don't live in Hollywood. Thank you very much.
Maybe all these Hollywood divorcees that, their marriage only lasted 6 weeks and stuff like that might not be the best people to be giving marital advice on how to cast your ballot and sneak around your spouse.
Yeah.
I mean, that might just me. But another I think problem that the Harris campaign has was single issue voters. They're one of my least favorite voting bloc. The people that only have one issue, and it doesn't matter if the rest of the world is on fire, as long as their issue is not met, then they will or will not vote for that person. And this year's issue was abortion. And
it's almost every election cycle's issue.
Well, I mean, but still, she made a big case for if you vote for Donald Trump, you're going national abortion ban, and he specifically said that he was not doing that. But she kept just hammering it down, and it was this message. The other thing that Kamala, the whole trend of her campaign was but Trump. But Trump. But what are you going to do here? But Trump. That was her answer for everything. And it was I want to say it was the last week of the election, and the campaign specifically said and put out their feelers to the New York Times and to various news outlets, specifically put out a message that says, I don't know if you noticed, but she is not going to say Trump's name in the last week of the election. And so, and she didn't. She would say, my opponent or, whatever.
The devil we not speak of.
Yeah. So I mean, for her to, her campaign to deliberately, hey, did you notice she's not saying his name? It is too late. It is too late the last week of the election to stop. But Trump, syndrome.
Well, yeah, he's such an effective Hitler. He brings together RFK, brings together Tulsi Gabbard, brings together Vivek Ramaswamy. I mean, all these people, and yet her party's dividing people.
Yeah.
Which is more divisive? Hitler divided the Germans from the Jews and the Gypsies.
I mean, literally, it was the racial and religious stovepiping and separation identity politics that the Democrats supposedly accused the Republicans of doing. Honestly, we're so glad the election's over. One, so that I stop getting all these text messages for $2 and $5 and will I take this poll and that poll and things like that. So I'm glad for that. But I am proud of the United States and to have Donald Trump win the Electoral College, and I'm very confident that he's going to get 312 Electoral College votes. But on top of that, to win the national popular vote by 5 million
almost
people.
5 million
Yeah.
people, so that the left cannot be like, yeah, this is fair, or we want to ban the Electoral College. I mean, what? What'd you say? What'd you say?
Exactly.
Oh, no. But I'm always proud to be American.
Yes.
But I am especially proud of America's ability, despite the media, despite the biased media, despite everything, to call bullshit.
Yep.
We didn't let identity politics divide us, because other countries have fallen for that. In Mao's cultural China, they divided up families. Oh, we're going to, the kids are going to report you to, the government. We didn't fall for it. Another day to live. We didn't
Right.
fall for it.
And
so
I'm glad for
I'm
that,
very
too.
proud.
Yeah, I am too. So thank you so much for tuning into Azimuth Podcast, and please stay tuned after these messages.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for listening. If you enjoy our show with all the stories we share, we would love your support.
And it's as easy as clicking that subscribe or follow button. This will ensure you never miss an episode and keeps us bringing you these important stories. Your support makes a huge difference. Thank you so much for being part of our podcast family.
Thanks, and keep tuning in.
It's 2024. How could the polls be so wrong again? Let's talk about it on Azimuth Podcast. I'm Barrett McNabb, and with me is Kimberly McNabb. Kimberly, what are your just out of your thoughts? What are your thoughts on how the polling worked this election cycle after supposedly it had been fixed since the 2020 and 2022 cycles?
Well, I guess that they're all leftists, and they want to be loved by their own party, and they want to motivate their own party to get out there and vote. And, it's just human nature. You want to feel like you're on the winning team. So if you're a leftist, well, of course, you wanted Kamala Harris to win. So you want to motivate those people like, yeah, we're the winning team. Yeah,
Right.
Look how far ahead we are. Damn my credibility.
Yeah, I mean, the biggest one that hit the news cycle, I believe it was 2 days before the election, the Des Moines Register poll by Ann Seltzer, and she is, and we'll put a picture of her. Supposedly, she is the most accurate pollster in the United States,
Or was.
or was, and honestly, with her putting Kamala Harris 6 points over Donald Trump in ruby red Iowa.
It just made no sense.
It made no sense, and here's what happened. It sent shockwaves throughout the U.S. political environment, and CNN was reporting it. The New York Times was reporting it. Everywhere you could go was people that were reporting this, saying that this is an indication that Kamala Harris is going to win in a landslide election, because if she can win the Midwest, this was going to show what she was going to do for the rest of the United States. And honestly, this is my opinion, so I don't want to get sued by Ann, but this is my opinion. I personally think that she sold her soul to the Democrat Party and released that poll with the intent of influencing the election in favor of Kamala Harris. I said it.
And demoralizing the Republicans
Yeah.
as well, because I'll be honest, when I heard that, I mean, I was nervous about the election, not going to lie, but I was like, you know what? I think I need to turn off podcasts and news channels for the next few days. I did everything I could to help Donald Trump. We voted for him like day one of early voting. We,
Right.
Talk about it on our podcast. We talk about it with our family members.
We were poll watchers for the
We were
Republican
poll
Party.
watchers, so it's like, okay, there's nothing else I can do. It's like trying to get your child ready for a test, and then once they go off to school that day, you're like, okay, well,
I did it.
I did everything I could. It's up
Right.
to them. So I just wanted to put my head in the sand for 3 days, and I imagine I'm not the only one. So yeah, it did have its intended effect to demoralize Republicans and boost the morale of the Democrats.
Yeah, I personally think that this was done with the intent, and I think the vast majority of polling companies are run by liberal organizations. I want to say they're liberal. Now there's some that are supposedly neutral, but give me a break. It just seems as though that it was showing in the by and by that Harris was winning small. And they always caveat within the margin of error. It's a toss up, but Harris is winning, but within the margin of error. And when you see that, and especially this Des Moines Register poll by Ann Seltzer, it's almost as if, again, they're demoralizing Republicans and saying, look, it's in the bag. It's in the bag, so you might as well not get out and vote. You might as well stay home because you're going to lose anyway. Save your time. That's one of the reasons why, in my opinion, Nevada has one of the best methods of controlling information, and not controlling information in a bad way, but they do not release the election results until the last person has voted in the state.
Yeah, it's to prevent people from manipulating and using it for or against one party or another.
Yeah, I mean, if you're voting in poll station A and you're before you get to the 100-foot line and you're looking at your phone and you see, let's just say you're voting in Georgia. Hey, candidate X has run away with the vote, and you look and you're like, God, I got 2 hours left. They already won, so I'm just going to go ahead and get out of line and not vote. And the Nevada way of doing the elections, prevents that from happening because you're not going to know. I still have a chance.
Right. Well, I mean, it reminds me of Iowa, the primary, the Republican primary. They were calling it for Trump within an hour or two. Right. I'm like, no, I want every vote to be counted before, because I was rooting for DeSantis.
Right. Well, I mean, it's interesting. Like pick a New York state, right? And so the polls opened in New York State. The polls closed in New York State. We can call that Kamala Harris has won New York State, without counting any of the votes. You just like dun dun, the music comes on, and then we've called New York State for Kamala Harris. Now it's true, but that didn't even look to see what the tally was going to be. How
close was it? Come on.
Yeah, exactly. So, so. It did. Just even us personally, that Des Moines Register poll did have us in a small funk, for a while. But I used a bunch of different polling systems, and I made a prediction. And I shared it with Kimberly, and I shared it with some friends. In retrospect, I really wish I'd made a video about it and posted it and said, here's what my prediction is. But my prediction was that Trump was going to get 312 electoral college votes, and I picked all the states, and I went 50 for 50. I went 50 for 50, and so Kimberly had some friends of hers that had kind of dismal rankings and things like that.
Much closer election.
And so one of the things, powerful website, really powerful website, and we're putting it up now, and we'll do a picture-in-picture. So I hope this works where we're synchronizing our voices because I'm doing a screen recording. But I highly encourage people to play around with this every election cycle, but it's cool to play with now. But it's called 270towin.com. And in it has a bunch of preloaded polls that are in there. And on top of that, you can manipulate the map and create your own pathway to victory and stuff like that. So it's really kind of a powerful tool. And you can download it and take a screenshot of it and export it and stuff like that and share it with people, which is what I did with Kimberly and some of my friends. But on the screen right now, it had the 2024 consensus of what the state right before the election kicked off. And you can see that in this scenario, Democrats, Kamala Harris had 226 electoral college votes, and Donald Trump and the Republicans had 230. And so you can see that the states that are in red were either solid or leaning Republican. States in blue and light blue were solid or leaning towards the Democrats. And then you have these tan states, which are the the swing states, right? Now, the map is continuously evolving, right? So this map is different than it was even a few days ago, and it had Arizona as tan. And so right now, unfortunately, I can't go back in time. We're making this video after the election instead of before the election, but still, if you actually, you know what, I can actually manipulate this and make it a toss-up. So yeah, so this is how the map was prior to the election. And so in this instance, let me reframe the status of the Electoral College vote. So it was Harris at 226, and in this scenario, which was prior to the election, Arizona was labeled a swing state. So 219 for the Republicans in this scenario. And so the cool thing about this map is you're able to go to reset it, and you can go to the map library, and they have all of these different polls that you can choose and see, what it is. So, the Cook Political Report poll, we'll, click on that, and, it has the same thing, 226, 219. You can go to the 224 consensus, and it has this. You can go to the 538 model, which is, out of, you need 270 to win, but a lot of people don't realize yet there's 538 electoral votes out there. So there's another website, the 538 model, and, it has this going on. So anyway, what I used was a model that doesn't really have a lot of name recognition, I don't think, as far as I've seen in the mainstream media. Atlas Intel is you just Google that, Atlas, like the demigod, and Intel is in short for intelligence, Atlas Intel, and they are a Brazilian polling company, and their model was the basis of what I used my model off of, the information I used. And the interesting thing about that I feel that a lot of the polls that are done in the United States are done with a political slant in order to, on the by and by, disadvantage the Republicans over the Democrats. I'm saying that the quiet part out loud. I mean, the 2016 polls showed that Clinton was dominating Trump and everything. And again, I think they did that to suppress the Republican vote, and it turned out they were way wrong. And so they all said, "Oh, this is horrible. We had lost credibility, but we'll get it right for the 2020." And they show Biden with a landslide, and honestly, he eked it out. I mean, he really 10,000 votes here, 30,000 votes there. And so, they're wrong again. And so anyway, this Atlas Intel, company, like I said, is Brazilian. They don't have any skin in the game. They don't. It's not that they're leaning Republican or leaning Democrats. They're running their polls, and they do all kinds of polling and services all globally. But still, their poll, what I felt, was the most neutral poll, and they had the exact same 50 out of 50, 312 electoral votes that I had as well. So let's go ahead and just kind of show. So we'll do the 2024 actual. So this is what they showed 2 days prior to the election. And that shows 226 for Harris and 312 for Trump. And that's exactly what's going to happen. And so, they already knew in advance that the blue wall was not going to hold, and that it was going to be a red wall. And, again, Georgia, they're right there. North Carolina, they're correct. Nevada, Arizona, they were 50 out of 50. So we both got the exact same, perfect state after state. And again, in retrospect, I really wish I had made a video with my
prediction. We have
prediction.
the saved messages and screenshots, so you can start building that line of credibility.
Yeah. In fact, I'll put a screenshot up here that shows the time date stamp of me sending that to some of my friends, and it again, it's before the election, and so hopefully I can get some credibility there. But still, we have to take a look at ourselves as a nation of doing these polls, and I know you have been a ardent non-supporter of polls. You hate polls.
Yeah, they just drive me crazy. I mean, all you can do is all you can do. Leave it all on the mat, and once you get in that test room, like, okay, I studied. Just do my best. But I think all these polls slant left because, well, the U.S.-based ones at least, because the left is overtaken of the institutions. I mean, it's just evident of that, whether it's media, whether it's polling, and I get why Marxism and this victim mentality that they subscribe to is appealing. Like, nothing's my fault. There's something wrong with everyone else. I mean, it's a tale as old as time, and it feeds right into human nature. So the polling people are just another victim of it.
Yeah, I mean, to your point, with the media, there's this big kerfuffle with the Washington Post and Jeff Bezos overriding their editorial board in supporting a candidate for president.
Yeah,
right?
He didn't want to.
He wanted to. He wanted, and I correctly believe him. He wanted to maintain neutrality because the news should be neutral. It should be if you are purporting to be a news organization, you should be reporting that water is wet and that the sky is blue, like the old BBC. They're slightly changing with the times, and I think leaning more into having editorial instead of just the news. But if you're purporting to be news, you need to just report. There are two candidates for president of the major parties. One is Kamala Harris on the Democratic ticket, and one is Donald Trump on the Republican ticket, and we wish them well to both. I mean, that's what the news organization should say.
Well, I've heard commentary thinking, oh, Jeff Bezos may be red-pilled. No. I think he's just a smart businessman that sees the writing on the wall. He sees, CNN's numbers going down, MSNBC's numbers going down, and podcasts and other media are going up. And he's like, you know what? I don't want to go down as much as those guys. What are the guys that are going down doing? They're being partisan hacks.
Right.
Maybe we shouldn't be a partisan hack, and we won't lose as many subscribers. And yes, the Washington Post did lose a lot of subscribers from that, but he's probably thinking long term.
Yeah, of course he's thinking long term, and in restoring the integrity. And I know the Washington Post employees probably just had their necks spin
integrity.
Around.
What's that?
What's integrity? But restoring the integrity of the news institution. And that is what it is. If you are putting an editorial slant on everything you do, then you're just feeding in that's why people don't subscribe. That's why people in Texas don't subscribe to the Washington Post. That's why people in Texas don't subscribe to the New York Times. It's people in New York subscribe to the New York Times, and the elitists maybe throughout that only want to hear a certain slant. It was kind of funny. I was watching CNN just after President Biden gave his speech. It was a pretty short speech, and I thought it was pretty good. And a lot of people say, "Oh, this is the best speech ever." Calm down, calm down. It wasn't the best speech that was ever written. There's a couple of people that are the front of that line. I'd say Martin Luther King Jr. is kind of up there. The Reagan on the border in between East and West Germany might be kind of up there as well. President Biden's speech that he just gave today that was 20 minutes long. I'm not thinking it's in the top 10, but it was a good speech. And but one of the things that the CNN commentators were saying is that the Republicans have really gotten good at messaging and controlling the messaging, and that that the Republicans have a single source of news that they get, and it's Fox News. And so there's no deviation, and the left doesn't have a source of news that is unified. And I was like, what? And the thing is after they said it, they didn't laugh. So like MSNBC,
case in point, once one. All the leftist news outlets called J.D. Vance weird, as if on cue.
On cue, yeah. After Wall said it.
I mean, they repeat each other. Like, no, you guys are towing that line pretty well.
But with a straight face, they're like the left does not have a news source that allows them to get MSNBC. I mean, now maybe they mean news because MSNBC is not news. So maybe they are right that there's not a single source of news. MSNBC is 100% editorial and just negative Nancy's on anything Republican. So maybe that's what they mean, that there's not, because Fox News actually has news that comes out. They have editorial and opinion shows as well, but they have actual physical news and breaking news and just reporting. And I guess maybe they mean MSNBC isn't fit that category, and they're just 100% editorial. So maybe, but still they have MSNBC, they have CNN. It was kind of funny, CNN saying that about itself, because I would have to say 80% of the news anchors on CNN are anti-Republican. I mean, they have them on the show, but they step on them and interrupt them, and Republicans that are on the show and stuff like that. But still, I just thought that was the pot calling the kettle black.
Well, they're just not self-aware,
right?
At all.
Right. Yeah. So anyway, what's the deal with polls? Ann Seltzer, again, in my opinion, I'm not accusing her. I'm just saying this is my opinion. Sold out to the Democrat Party, lost all of her credibility on Twitter. There's been a number of people that said, enjoy your retirement, and some people are saying like, well, the Democrats thought she was the Oracle of Delphi, and it turns out after climbing to the top of the mountain with our sacrifice, we missed out. So she's definitely not that. But I really think she sold her soul in order to influence the election, and shame on you, Ann, for doing that. But still, don't believe the polls. Get out and vote. Your vote matters. It's now clear just how much your vote matters. And Donald Trump is going to secure 312 electoral votes and 5 million votes in the popular vote, and has a clear mandate, and was able to do it in spite of all of the negative polling that the Republicans got.
Yep. So next election, don't fall for the polls.
Yep. Don't fall for it. So thanks so much for tuning into Azimuth Podcast, and please stay tuned after these messages.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for listening. If you enjoy our show with all the stories we share, we would love your support.
And it's as easy as clicking that subscribe or follow button. This will ensure you never miss an episode and keeps us bringing you these important stories. Your support makes a huge difference. Thank you so much for being part of our podcast family.
Thanks, and keep tuning in.